This lesson is on subtracting fractions. Just as before with the adding or multiplying or dividing, there is a must. And in this case, again, it's like adding. Must have a common denominator. You just really can't work without them. Alright, so on the first one, I've already got a common denominator, and so this is very similar to adding. We leave the denominator alone because the denominator tells us what kind of fraction we have, and the numerator tells us how many of that fraction that we have. So the denominator is just telling us what we have. It's not going to change. So if I have 7/10 and someone takes away 3/10 of them, I'm left with 4/10. I see that both of those numbers are even, so I can divide by 2 and get 2/5. And so our answer is 2/5. On the next one, just as before, we have one operation that we can do to get to a common denominator, because I know that 5 will go into 10. And so I can just change the first fraction then. So this becomes 4/10 minus 1/10. And again, it just tells me what kind of fraction I have there. So 4/10, and someone takes away one of them, and I have 3/10 left. On the last one, I will have to change both of the fractions, and the least common multiple for 8 and 5 is going to be 40. It's not going to be anything smaller than that. You can use any method you want to find those common denominators. As I say, we need to find a common denominator. It needs to be the least common denominator if possible, so that your numbers are smaller. The bigger we get, I could do 400 as a common denominator for that one, but then my numbers would start to get very big and I may make a mistake. Alright, so we have 15/40, subtract 8/40, which will leave us with 7/40. So again, we have no simplifying to do on that one at all. Alright, let's have a look at some mixed numbers. As we said with addition, we can leave these as mixed numbers sometimes. But there's going to be a problem here with this one. Let's see the first one first. So we have 2 3/4, take away 1 1/4. So we're going to take away the 1 from 2, and I have 3/4, take away 1 of them, I end up with 2/4, and that will give me 1 1/2. But you see here, I can take away the whole number, but I now no longer have enough of the fifths to take away 2 of them. So what we do is we rename, we take 5/5. So now I have 2, and this is what I'm doing even if I don't show all these steps. Okay, so I'm renaming one of those to 5/5. Now I have 2 and 6/5. Take away 2 and 2/5. That will leave me with 4/5. So it's a very similar process to borrowing, when we borrow from the tens or the hundreds. But we do have to do that. Alright, on the last one then, we could go ahead and leave it as a mixed number, but we're going to end up with a negative, aren't we? So we're going to end up in negative territory with this one. So I think the best thing is to change it to an improper fraction, and then change it to a common denominator and see where we go from there. So we would have 3/2, subtract 9/4. We're going to change that to 6/4, subtract 9/4. So one of the ways we can deal with negatives is they become very confusing for a lot of people with integers. So one of the ways we can do this is we can say that we owe money or something like that. So I have 6/4. I'm not going to worry about it being anything but 6/4 right now. I have 6/4, but I owe someone 9/4. So I give them my 6, and I will still owe them, which means it'll be negative 3/4. Okay, and that's going to be my answer. And we're going to do a lot of work this year on negative numbers, integers, and figure out how to do these. But that is subtracting fractions. Again, I can keep them whole, but often I want to change them to an improper fraction. And don't forget always to simplify at the end of the process and make sure it's in its simplest form.